Beautiful. So let's make sure we're live. I'm going to double check it on our X account.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are live here with David Branscum. Super excited to be here with you because you are kind of the leading edge on something interesting that we're doing in Texas, which is that instead of doing the Nashville Energy and Mining Summit, Bitcoin Park is now moving into the great state of Texas, of which you are a member, a participant, a citizen of.
yeah,
So yeah, I'd love to spend the next little bit chatting with you, getting your perspective on what's coming up and the exciting things happening in Texas. But first, could you, I generally just assume everyone already knows you because you do seem to know everyone in the space already. Could you introduce us to who you are and what you're up to in the space?
sure. I think you got it wrong, though. More importantly, I'm here with the amazing Rob Warren. That's what I'm doing here tonight or today, and I'm super excited to be here. You're not super excited to see me. I'm excited to see you. So I'm just gonna put that out there for everybody. Um, we are. So I've been in mining for, I guess, about what September will be 4 years. I
Mm-hmm.
came into the space accidentally. My neighbor across the street from this house where I'm at right now, at the time was the CEO of Midas Immersion, and they had just closed their big
Get out
project
of
deal.
here.
What's up?
That's such a hoot. So you were neighbors with the Midas guys.
Yeah, well, he was the CEO there, one of the founders, and I went to work with them, and I thought I was just going to be selling immersion to traditional data centers,
Mm-hmm.
for standard kind of rack servers, but put down in the oil this way. And I thought that was my focus, but like I just started talking to and working with these cowboys that were like throwing hash rate in all these weird places, and started hanging out. Went to a couple of events. Met some good guys in the space, and I was like, man, this is a lot more fun. What is all this about? And it was cool because I sort of knew what Bitcoin was, but not really. I'd done a little bit of mining, uh, like just at home with like Ethereum, but I was mining to NiceHash, so I was getting paid out in Bitcoin, right? Like I kind of
For
skipped over
sure.
a lot of the shitcoin phase. I didn't deal with a lot of that, luckily. Um, but all these guys just assumed I was a Bitcoiner, and they just say things in at events or while we're working, and I just be like, oh, that's yeah, I don't know what that is, and I'd like write it down, and I'd go look at it, look later, and it's like they just assumed because I was working with them that I already knew all this stuff. I didn't know anything about it, but I slowly started DCAing from like 21 down uh, on that from that high, and I was like, man, I don't know, it's going down, it's going down. Uh, I was like, maybe it's not going to make it or whatever. And it got down to 20K, like the end of 22. And I was just like, man,
Yeah.
I'm all in. Like if between starting there, what I learned from Bitcoiners and reading like The Creature from Jekyll Island and, uh, you know, working with all these guys and listening to, like Michael Saylor and the What Is Money podcast, those first, however many uh, I was just like, man, the dollar's going to go to zero. It's like it does it every year. That's all the problem and the pain that I felt over the last 10 years. Like, why is the money in my bank account not buying what it used to buy? And went all in the end of 22. I had worked on a couple of independent projects for some investors. I left Midas after about a year. I worked with some nice guys from Miami, helped them build a mine in North Carolina. They were actually the first ones that really gave me a shot. And I had never built a data center before, but luckily, Bitcoin mining data centers, the pieces are for the most part pretty simple. And so uh, worked on with them for about 90 days, planning and building a 16 megawatt site. Then I got to work with some guys who were doing some off grid mining. Chris Alfano, 360 Mining, let me go out there and work on his site, just moving miners around and setting up immersion there, and so I got to understand kind of how off grid gas sites work and that sort of thing. I think you have some experience with that with upstream, right? So I've had a little bit of I got to run a hydro system one of the first ones that I know of in the state, or in the U.S. It was 10 of the original Lutz miners in
Oh,
the
cool.
core boxes.
Yeah.
They weren't even, there was no serial numbers, no print, no labels, nothing on them, and it was the first ones that had all the connections on the front, and stuff like that. And I was like,
Oh my goodness.
but it was fun. I had a guy who's a lot smarter than me, fine tuning them, but I mean, we were pushing those things at like 10 kilowatts. We had 100 kilowatts in a rack,
Holy cow.
10 miners. So just I've been really lucky to get to do a lot of fun projects, and now I'm at a point where just I feel very blessed to be like, I don't have to stress about going and finding the next gig or finding the next job. Maybe I should, probably should a little stress about it a little bit, but I just try to help people that I see in the space, and sometimes they'll pay me for it. Sometimes I'll exchange it for some hash rate down the line at the end of the project or something like that. And I've been very lucky. Maybe about a year and a half ago, I thought I was going to just go back to working it. I had a job at Dell, and I had an old contact that offered me a job there, and I was really close to going back. And I was like, man, I can't go back to a cubicle. I can't unsee all this craziness. And I have more fun, on site wearing jeans and boots and getting dirty and racking miners.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out why I screwed up a gen set and it's not working anymore or whatever. It's like all those kinds of things, the FAFO side of things, right? Where it's like, it's just so much more fun to do. Sitting in a cubicle, I can't go back. So whether if Bitcoin makes it, I'll be okay. If it doesn't, I won't, but I don't care. It's,
We've got bigger problems if that's the case, right?
Yeah, I'm in it, man. And, I just love what everybody's doing in the space. There's so many cool things, and I'm a tactile guy, so I like the hardware. So naturally, the mining side is just where the mining side and some heat recapture, reuse, energy. I just kept moving slowly upstream. Start out on one end of the hardware, then moving upstream all the way to like energy production. It's just all fascinating. It's fascinating, and there's some amazing things going on, and I just do whatever I can to encourage anybody that's either working in the space or wants to get in the space, and anything I can do to help, just kind of push the network forward and push the energy side of Bitcoin forward.
One thing that's cool to me is that Texas has become, especially after the China ban, when China actually decided to ban Bitcoin mining, or so they say, it became you went from the place that was the most at risk of being locked down, China.
Yeah.
It got locked down, and then everyone repatriated or just moved to arguably one of the freest places, if not the freest place in the U.S. to mine Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
What's special about Texas? What makes Texas different from going to Georgia, going to Nashville, going to Minnesota, going to the West Coast? Like, what makes it characteristically different that you find interesting?
Well, again, I was kind of lucky to just be here, right? Like born and raised here. So been here pretty much my whole life. And then when I got into Bitcoin, Austin was kind of a hub for tech, right? Unchained is based here. Now, obviously, they started the Commons, which is now, Bitcoin Park, right? Bitcoin Park, Austin. I was just kind of lucky to kind of be drawn into it. So there's always kind of been a little bit of that feel, just for any kind of industry, right? Texas is wide open. It's open for business. There's a lot of energy here, and you can say that literally as well as metaphorically, right? I mean, the energy here in Texas, it is plentiful, and then you just got to literally go get it out of the ground. And then, metaphorically speaking, I mean, just the attitude in Texas is a can-do attitude. Sometimes we go too far with it, and we look like a-holes as we travel, or, to other states. Like, we have some friends in Ohio, and he's like, how if somebody's from Texas? I was like, I don't know. He's like, don't worry, they'll tell you, right? So it's like, it's kind of that thing. It's that attitude, it's a pride and thing, but for the most part, it's just a friendly, welcoming, open, area. Now you still have to put in the work and stuff, right?
Hmm.
Nothing's for free. Um, but if you put in the work here, people typically respect that work and what you're trying to do and accomplish. And so that as a whole, just Texas as a whole, but really, there's only two markets in the United States. I mean, I think the United States obviously is an energy leader. We're a very rich country in general, pretty much any way you slice it. But from an energy perspective, if we took all the regulations off, I really don't think there's a country out there that could match us from an energy perspective if we just opened it up. Now, I'm not going to argue one way or the other whether the regulation should be there. Some of them probably should, some of them probably shouldn't. But it's there and it's available to us. So you if you can come, what I can't remember exactly what year the China, what was the when was the China shutdown when you saw a
It's
drop in
like
the house?
22 or something.
Yeah.
I could check
So
mempool.space and
yeah,
see
so
it
I
right
had
on the
like
chart.
yeah, so I had like just kind of started, right? And when that happened, I just assumed it was weird. All of these people started coming in and popping up, and it was like I just assumed it was a natural progress. I didn't know anything really about the Bitcoin network, right, or what was going
Hmm.
on, or we also had the war in Ukraine that hit right in like February of that year. You had the 22. You also had when that happened, like was it Compass Mining like lost a bunch of hash rate in Russia, and stuff like that. So it's like all
Yeah.
this weird stuff was happening, and
Yeah, I just pulled it up. It was summer of 21.
okay, yeah. So it had just happened right as I came in September of 21, right? So it had just kind of happened, and I was like, oh, I just assumed we'd always, been receiving calls from Chinese-based companies, wanting to find energy in Texas. That's a new thing, okay? Uh, that sort of thing. But compared to the rest of the U.S., there's really only two markets that are deregulated, and one of those is
Yeah.
the ERCOT grid, which covers a pretty good chunk of Texas. Not all of it, not the Panhandle and some little weird spots on the edge, but most of the state of Texas is a deregulated market, meaning it's completely free. You can buy and sell power, and you can even buy and sell futures of that power, essentially, right? So that's what makes it special. You do have, I think it's PJM up in, kind of the Midwest, Ohio, Pennsylvania area, and that sort of thing. Also deregulated, works a little differently, but it feels like, and I don't know, I've heard some rumors, so I don't know a whole lot about the details specifics, but it feels like there's a little bit of an attitude up there that they're trying to maintain what little regulation and control they have, and so they're kind
Hmm.
of leaning into push. It the the one detail I heard was that let's say you're paying, the basically delivery and transmission parity. So like if you're paying for delivery of power at like or transmission level power, um, and then you get it delivered, they're going to double the amount. So it's like if you're paying
Hmm.
X for this, and I don't know if it's First Energy up there because they're really big up there. AEP's got some, owns the lines up there and that sort of thing. It's just there's some kind of interesting things happening up there uh, where they're trying to, I guess, maintain their hold. That's fine if they do that. It's just going to push everybody else to Texas, right? It's that
That's
idea.
right.
If you tax, what's the old you tax the in Italy or wherever it was when you tax the rich people in the boats, they just take their boats and they float off somewhere else, right? It's like
That's right. Yeah.
it's going to happen. So sorry, I got an airplane coming in, but
Oh, you're good.
we so it's that's what Texas has always been. It's always been open. It's always been this. Um, I'm surprised at how California used to feel that way. Like when I was as young as just not too long ago, 20, 25, 30 years when I was a kid, growing up, and it was like California was a land of opportunity. You could go do that too, and now it's been like completely just stifled. Right? It's hard, and companies are leaving there. So my goal just as a citizen, Bitcoiner, whatever you want to say, is just to maintain that attitude and that freedom in Texas,
Yeah.
and realize that energy is abundant. The people in power don't like that. They want to put gates on it and make it difficult for people to get access, but it literally comes out of the ground here. If you're willing to go
Yeah.
get it and spend the energy and the time and the money to go get it, and we're still not even. I don't think we're even hit scraping the tip of the iceberg at this point, right? There's so much
That's
energy here,
what's
and we're going to see,
yeah.
especially in West Texas, where there's no people, not a lot of people, but a ton of energy. Everything's going to migrate that way, I think.
That's one thing that I'm very curious to get your thoughts on because you hit on a couple of interesting things there. One of which is that, energy had been something that was often controlled in almost monopolistic fashion. And oftentimes the generators of energy don't really have to care about the consumers of energy. It's just a ratepayer, and you don't have options. So if you don't live in Texas, one funny story, I had a buddy that moved to Houston for a number of years, and I went to go visit him, and he was telling me that he was still kind of getting his things assembled, right? He was getting his pictures put up and his furniture put in the right place. And on his island, he had all these various pieces of mail from different energy companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all pitching him on different things that he could buy. And he was telling me, I have no idea what the hell this is. We grew up in the Midwest.
Yeah,
There was one energy company that you went to, and that's who you bought your energy
yeah,
from. And these people are telling me they're going to give me a flat screen TV if I buy their energy services. That's a very, very subtle shift that you don't even think about it if you don't live in a place that has that kind of freedom. But Texas is living that every single day. So the question I have on this front is, sure, people can come to Texas, but how can Texas teach other people about the virtues of being productive, energy producing centric, of being focused on generating as much as you can because it's good for your population?
yeah. There's a few people that are kind of extolling the virtues of energy in this space, and that and they've been, not to minimize their story, right? But they've been produced by the culture of Texas, right? Multiple generations
Mm-hmm.
in some case. Lee Bratcher, with Texas Blockchain is doing a really good job of that, helping to push because, as large of a state as it is, kind of like California, kind of like New York, Texas is one of those states that, where they go, a lot of other states follow, right? So
Mm-hmm.
leading the charge that way is very important. Gideon Powell is probably one of my favorite guys to listen to speak. He'd probably be the first one to tell you, no, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm boring, right? But he's not. He's seventh or eighth generation, oil and gas guy from Texas, who is constantly reminding us that energy means prosperity, right? And if you look at
Mm-hmm.
that chart that I'm sure a few of us have seen on Twitter and whatnot about, how powerful a nation is versus how much energy it uses. There's never been a super, global power that uses low amounts of energy, right? It's just
Yep.
not. It's just not. You can't do it.
Yep.
And I guess it's something I kind of already always knew growing up here, but like you said, you can take it for granted, if you're in it and it's just the norm. But when I was listening to like Michael Saylor talk to, Breedlove in those, first thing he talked about is, it's whoever spends the most energy is the winner, right?
Yeah.
Whoever has the most energy, whoever utilizes the most energy. And sometimes that could be forcing your people to build weapons. Sometimes it can be, spending the time and effort to figure out gunpowder. It's, or just as simple as, hey, we're going to use longbows instead of spears because, longbows can, go 3 or 4 times. We can shoot them into the armies before they even show up. So it's like, this is all energy expenditure. So the easiest way to do it, obviously, is just have someone to come here, because the second they try to put gates on it and try to enact their, that kind of that other side of it and said, no, 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 the control side or whatever, very quickly they learned that either A, it doesn't work out well for them from a capitalistic perspective, they just can't afford to continue, or B, they will be met with brute force. There will be
Yeah.
Texans that literally are like, oh, no, no, I'm sorry, we're not stopping that. I'm going to call my cousin who works at, who's on the city council, and, we're going to get this done and take, or whatever, because it's like that attitude, people come here. I think, when you and I first got on, you're like, hey, it's nice to be able to come to Texas and spend a little more time in Austin. I'm excited about, getting this. It's this weird attitude that you're just here, and it's just this can-do attitude, like, hey, we can live our lives the way we want. I'm not going to do anything to hurt you, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I'm also, I'm also not going to allow you to stop me from living and being who I want to be, and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, there's
that
a
is,
lot of crossovers with the values of Bitcoin, right?
yeah,
It's funny to hear you talk about there's two things that seem contradictory on their face, but actually seem to make a lot of sense, which is, you mentioned multi-generational Texans, folks that have been in Texas for 5, 6, 10 generations. I remember one of the first times seeing Marshall Long get up and give a talk. He's talking about how he's a proud 10th generation Texan.
yeah,
And you think, okay, it would be very easy to be a 10th generation something and to just rest on your laurels.
yeah.
You think maybe you become just the hierarchy, the Texas nobility, but maybe Bitcoin is great for Texas because it has this kind of low time preference that being a multi-generational family gives you, but there's this can-do attitude culture that is ripe to do work in the energy sector, ripe to do work in the hedge fund or the market sector, as Dallas can speak to, or ripe to do things in the tech sector in the way that Austin does. Maybe it is a perfect match. Maybe Texas is the most Bitcoin-like state in the union currently.
I That's a really good point. I think, like anything that's created, invented, discovered, it always naturally progresses to wherever it's needed most, right? The people that are going to need it the most. Um, Texas is not in a situation where I feel like they needed it the most, right? But because of its tie directly to energy, it was just a
Mm-hmm.
natural progression. And it's because it stayed, proof of work, right? Um, and the more I thought about that over the years, just the more real that connection became. Bitcoin in and of itself is interesting to me, but it's really only worth something, in my opinion, if you use it, right? Yes, it's a store of value, and it's because it's not inflationary, it's deflationary. The value tends to go up over time. The cost of things can go down, which is fantastic. But like I've just always thought about it as like it's in the work, right? It's the value's in the work. It's not in the thing itself. It's actually in the work.
Mm.
I Earlier, and I mentioned my neighbor across the street, right? I had been through 2020, COVID, rough time, just like everybody else. Um, like very difficult time mentally from some perspectives, right? Especially seeing what was happening to. I had two boys that were in middle school, elementary and middle school at the time. It's
Wow.
it was brutal, right? And I realized I was just on the same loop every day. Like I'd get up, I'd sort of do some things, but I'd really just hang out. And I understand why so many people just ended up like, becoming alcoholics and drinking, because you're like, what do you do? Right? You have nothing to do. You just watch, Netflix and drink all day. I was like, and I just started feeling like terrible. I did a little bit of, working out, but I just couldn't stick with that. Finally, one day, I was just like, the stores, hardware stores were opening back up, and I have a koi pond in my backyard, it's just right on the other side of the camera here, and I just decided I've been going down the YouTube rabbit hole of hydroponics and aquaponics and stuff. I'm going to build a grow bed. right? So I
Hmm.
just literally took my truck and went to Lowe's and bought like $2,000 worth of stuff I probably shouldn't have spent my money on, right? And just, I didn't have a plan or anything. And I came back and I just opened up my garage, threw it in there, and started like working. I had pipes, I had pumps, I had 2x4s, I had a pond liner, all this stuff. And and for the first time in probably a year and a half, since COVID, since the lockdown, maybe a year since the lockdown, it was like I felt good about doing something. You know what I mean? It's like I was
Mm.
moving, I was creating, I was building, and I had so much fun with it, trying to figure out the problems and trying to create a solution. And oh well, how do I? Oh, a flood and drain is good. How does that work? Oh, a bell siphon. What's that? It's like you start learning these things, and then you learn one thing, and it takes you here, and you learn another, and you learn another, and it just becomes addictive. And uh, I was doing that in my garage, and that's when my neighbor came across, and we started the conversation that eventually led me to working with him. Right? It's like
Wow.
it's like that Bitcoin being focused on energy spent and proof of work, right? To verify that block and to keep the ledger secure all the way back to the first block. It's like that work and that energy needs to be spent. That's the point, right? That energy has to be spent. It's the point of the blockchain. Without it, it's just Ethereum or some other centralized piece of trash. And I realized a couple of years in, it's like I had gotten in that rut where I just felt like I'm in my you know God, how old was I at the time? I don't know, it was like 40s, right? It's like, well, I guess I just have to go get another sales job, or I have to do whatever I've always done, right? Like whatever. And just the act of trying to learn and do something new was enough of a catalyst to completely reinvent myself and make me excited again about learning something new. And that took me into Bitcoin, which I knew nothing about 5 years ago, and now it's like it's I'm obsessed with it. You know what I mean? And so
I
I
love
think
it.
it's that attitude. That's what's so infectious. Is yeah, the end product is great, right? But if you just come in and you just buy something and you have the end product, you don't appreciate it. It goes away. But putting in the time and the effort, and that's what Bitcoin makes you do, right? Yeah, you can go and you can buy Bitcoin, but if someone's rich and they just go and they just buy Bitcoin, it's not important to them, and it may disappear. Like they just,
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh yeah, I'll cash it out and I'll buy a house or whatever, right? Um, I wasn't, super rich when I started, so it's like I had to do the work. It took me a while to stack, you know, and so I appreciate that, and it's just made all the difference, uh, in me personally. And I realize it's like that's kind of the attitude that Texas has, right? It's the
Yeah.
wilders, the guys that are out working the patch. They just it, it's they whether they realize it or not, it's all about the learning, and they're willing to do it.
Man, I appreciate that perspective so much, David, because it really is a beautiful story for what a lot of people are experience. A lot of what pushed me, having gotten into Bitcoin 2017, but was getting distracted by another company that I was running at the time, and then getting back in kind of 18, 19. It wasn't until 2020 that I found, just as you were describing, this kind of light bulb goes off where you go, oh well, I could be I could be destroying myself pretty easily, just drinking and picking up whatever bad habits you did during the lockdowns, or I could be connecting with folks and generating value.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to hear you express that point. I'm curious if you can take us on a final note, because we're coming unfortunately to the end of our time here. Could you tell us a little bit about what you're excited for at the upcoming Texas Energy and Mining Summit? You've come to the park, you've experienced events there, and this is going to be the first time that we're doing this in Texas at Bitcoin Park Austin, the former site of the Commons. So obviously Unchained is the neighbor, Pleb Lab is there as well.
Hmm.
This is super, super exciting for all of us, but I'm curious to hear you, who has a lot of experience with Bitcoin Park, what are you pumped for coming into this upcoming Texas Energy and Mining Summit?
Yeah, sure. Um, I mean, I've been to, I think I went to two, the last two in Nashville, and walked in and was just like immediately just looked around the room. I was like, oh, these are my people, right? These are the people that are working in Bitcoin. I knew a lot of them, but even the ones I didn't know, I was like, we're, you know why you're here, and you're all there for the same reason. It's also still small enough, right? It's not like walking into Nape and it being like, thousands of people, right? It's like it's a small group. If you want to, you can, meet and talk to briefly every single person there, right? um
Mm-hmm.
it was the vibe was just great, right? So the fact that and then but my first ever Bitcoin meetup was actually not even in Austin, it was in Houston, but it was Parker Lewis's Bitcoin at
Sure.
at Lacrosse, right? Al's Lacrosse, and
Yeah.
going there, and I met uh, Austin Storms from Galaxy Digital. I met Alex Brammer. I met like a whole bunch of people, and Mario Gutierrez, right? That whole uh, Houston crew, right? Um, and I was like, the the but I very quickly realized, it's like, okay, so that Bitcoin Commons, as it was called, right? It's like that's the hub. That's where all these guys
Mhm.
are, like, they're getting shared space, they're working on this stuff. Um, that vibe there is always good, but I feel like as good as Nashville was, I feel like this one's going to be it. I hate it because I sound like the Texas guy, right? Everything's bigger in Texas, right? It's not. It's not, because that is a completely different thing. But like, it's very similar, right? It's taking those two sections of the country, right, that all think the same way, and bringing them together. Um, it's just it's hard to describe, how excited I am, right, about the just the vibe, the people that are going to come in. This last year I went, and I was in Nashville. I was amazed at how many people were there compared to the year prior, right? Like, there were some people that in the industry that I was
Packed.
like surprised. It's like, oh, nice to see you, oh, thanks for coming, kind of thing. uh, Texas is, especially Austin, is just as much of a destination in some ways as Nashville is. So it's like
Yeah.
there's going to be an even different group, even more. All those people will definitely be there too, but then there'll be even more and greater. There will be. I'd love to. I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, kind of the political side, right? Like, was it the governor or the senator that spoke
Yeah.
at the did the opening marks in Nashville, right, with Marty.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
it
We've
was
got
like,
some tricks up our sleeve.
yeah, it's Austin's kind of that same kind of feel too, right, with the Texas Capitol too. So it's like there's going to be, I'm really enjoying seeing some of these cool crossovers happening. Seeing all these, what they called the tentacles of Bitcoin, right? You had politics over here, you had finance over here, you had mining and hardware over here, you have energy over here. All of these things are
Yeah.
getting like tangled up together and crossing over, and it's so much fun to watch it. It's happening so quickly. So Austin is a good kind of, it's that kind of hub, right? You got tech, you got Texas, so you got a little bit of energy, you got the finance side, you definitely got the hardware side. You got West Texas with all the hash rate. It's like all of these things can kind of come together. If you're in Bitcoin mining, it's kind of your Super Bowl, I think.
Well said. Well, thank you so much for joining me, man. It's we can cut the stream and then chat a little bit more if you like. But this has been a huge pleasure. We're obviously streaming on our X right now. We'll get you tagged so that people can connect with you leading up to the events. We're excited to have you participating, which is going to be a huge blast.
Yeah, man.
But outside of that, yeah, thank you, and we'll see you. We'll see you in Austin in a couple of weeks, May 6th and 7th, with our second telehash ever on the
Uh-huh.
5th. So we'll have to see. Maybe we hit one block against all odds live on stream in Nashville.
That was amazing.
Can we get two? Can we
Yeah.
get two is the question.
Huh. I
Hopefully in
think so.
Texas.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. That was amazing to sit and be in the room when that happened.